Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Financially Fearless podcast. I have a super special, extra important guest today. Nicole is a previous client of mine. She's also a spiritual life and business coach. Nicole, do you want to talk any more about what you do? I'd love to tell everybody how amazing you are.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm a big lover of manifestation. My take on manifestation is really that it's a path of personal growth, that when we set out to create the things that we want in life, usually our setbacks and blocks come up are areas where we need to grow or trauma that we need to heal. And so rather than manifestation just being like this thing that I can get, thing I can use to get what I want, right?
Yeah.
It's really this opportunity, this pathway to find the areas that I can grow in. And I'm personally really passionate about manifesting money and
Yes.
teaching and being in the conversation of women being really powerful with money, being powerful money attractors. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
So how did you get into the manifestation? Like, how did you get into manifesting money? Like, what did that look like? How did you kind of know that like you were good at this? Like, was there like something that happened or like, yeah, just tell me how you got into it.
Yeah, this is interesting. I don't know if I've shared this with you before. So I actually got into it when I was like 16 or 17. My childhood years, my teenage years were really tumultuous. And I think it was through just wise women who happened to cross my path that would send me a book on chakras or recommend, these certain like spiritual books. And one of them was called Creating Money by, it's like a channeled book. And I think it's Sanaya Roman is the official author. But I was like 17 reading this book to try to figure out like how to move out on my own and pay my own rent and, like make it in the world, right? Because I just didn't really have that type of guidance and structure from my parents. And I just clung to that work. Like I feel like the work of spirituality and the work of manifestation in many ways saved my life because I just dove in. And at first, I was manifesting things like jobs and an apartment and the small stuff and really kind of using it in a way to survive. And I really feel like I did that for like a good decade almost until I got to this moment where I was like, wait a minute, why am I not manifesting like the big numbers or the
Mm-hmm.
big income, or why am I like in the same relationship pattern? And I realized that it was because I wasn't actually like manifesting the big stuff. I wasn't manifesting the large numbers in my bank account. I wasn't manifesting a husband and like the real things, like the big things, right? That tend to sort of go by the wayside unless we're really practiced in that. And so that really up leveled my journey. It's where my tagline came from: manifest massively. I started really going bigger in my manifestations. That led me to manifesting my husband. We've been together now for 10 years, married for 5.
Mm-hmm.
And also really starting to call in and manifest higher income amounts, more money to come in. And honestly, that was probably about 2013-ish when I look at where I was then, and even in the beginning stages of my relationship with my husband to where we are now, it's night and day. So I'm kind of sold on the whole manifestation thing.
I was saying it's so nice to have you on here because a lot of my talks, they're kind of like on the heavier side of money. Like they're talking about the strategy and the finances and looking at numbers and I feel like manifestation is almost this like lighter fun side of money. Do you feel like your manifestation process, does it feel like it's kind of getting to a vibe of feeling like money is coming to you? Like, would you consider that as part of a process of manifestation, or what does manifestation look like to you or feel like to you? Does it feel like that?
Yeah, I think the vibe is really important. So I like to look at manifestation through a multitude of lenses because we can look at it through a psychological lens and look at the mindset piece and the belief piece.
Right.
And to answer your question is definitely one of the areas, like I know for me in the beginning of my journey, one of the beliefs that I really started with was just believing that there was plenty of money available to me, that that more than enough is truth, that abundance is the truth of the reality that I exist in, rather than living in this experience of there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. So I really definitely believe in that mindset piece. And when we are disciplined in just working one belief like that and having that belief, like literally today, I really believing that there's plenty and believing that abundance is truth. It's just so easy for me. It's just, even if I get into a moment of scarcity, I can return to abundance very, very easily. In the beginning, not so much, right? But also that feeling, right? Our thoughts create our feelings. So that mindset and the narrative that's going on, we can talk ourselves into being really stressed out. We can talk ourselves into being really scared. We can think ourselves into feeling really good about stuff, right? So, so that feeling piece, I think, like you were talking about with the vibe, is also crucial as well. I also really love to tie that into like our nervous systems, because literally, right, like when we think about something that is potentially fearful, we can start to increase our heart rate, right? Like we affect ourselves physiologically. And then if you're open to that energetic lens, of course, our physiology, our emotions are gonna affect our energy. And you know what it's like to walk into a room where like some heavy conversation just happened and like the vibe is different, right? Like we all have a sense of energy. So I really feel like manifestation can be customized. If somebody just really is drawn more towards the mindset piece, then they should go with that. And if they don't really resonate with the energy piece, then that's okay, right? It doesn't change the fact that as a human, your ability to create what you desire and to create the experience that you want to have, it's innate within us. I feel like there's many, many paths to that. But I will say that the things that I focus on that I can easily just release, that I can just really feel good and excited about, and then just let go and not feel like I have to work on or control, those are the manifestations that come very easily, that come like out of nowhere. I totally forgot I wanted that. Those quiet moments between me and the universe that I'm like, yeah, I want this, but I fully surrender it. Like those are the things that I feel like are the most magical. Like for me, when I was manifesting my husband, I had a lot of internal work I needed to do on my relationship with men, on my relationship with dating, on being able to ask for what I want, just all kinds of things. So that wasn't as easy of one. It's not like, I started thinking differently and then 2 days later he showed up. Didn't quite work like that. But again, I think there is a playful side, and those things that we have the least resistance around, that we can be the most playful and joyful with, I feel like are the things that come easiest and come quickly.
So this is interesting because I wonder if this ties into, so I think everybody knows here on this podcast that I had debt for like 17 years. And as I look back through all my old journals, like, all of the mindset work, everything I was doing, I can see in almost every single journal that I've had since I started journaling, probably like maybe 6 years ago. And every single one had pay off debt, pay off debt, pay off debt, right? And I just kept writing it and writing it and writing it. But at least those 6 years, I can see it never came true until the past like 2 years when I paid off my debt in 16 months. But like if someone was to come to you, right, with this issue of I've been trying to manifest paying off my debt for 6 years, right? And it's not happening. Like, what kind of tips or tricks would you give them if they were like, I really want to pay off my debt. I really want to pay off my debt. And I just kept writing it. And I'm thinking about that because as you were talking, you were saying about things that are heavier, right? Sometimes are harder to manifest. And I think my debt felt so heavy, but what would you say if someone was like, I keep trying to pay off my debt. I keep trying to manifest paying off my debt. It's not happening. Like, what kind of tips or tricks would you say to them?
Yeah, this is so good. I have been on a debt payoff journey myself and had the experience of paying off a lot of debt as well. So the first place that I would go is to just uncover the fact, and I know you talk about this in your work because I've done your work, like the shame that is there in like this cultural narrative around debt and how it's bad and you shouldn't have it and you're a bad person because you have it. And like unconsciously we can take on this identity that like there's something wrong with us because I have this debt, and it becomes like this whole world and this whole thing.
Yeah.
It becomes this thing that we have to fix, right? And then it becomes like this mystery to us. So I feel like locating yourself, in all of that, and understanding that a lot of the perceptions and beliefs and conversations that you have around debt, you inherited. They're beliefs that were given to you by your upbringing. They're beliefs that were given to you by society. And I believe that when we create our own authentic relationship to money, our own authentic relationship to that debt, just coming from who we really are, distinct from those narratives and those stories and those negative emotions, right? We actually can insert our power into that and start to decide, okay, wait, this doesn't mean something is wrong with me. This doesn't mean something is bad about me. It really is just, how did I hear it say once? It's just past expenses. Like finding a way to define it that takes that like tension out of your body, right? Because I mean, it can really be one of those things where you can really incite a lot of fear of what's going to happen if I'm still in debt, and this fear builds up. And one of the things I'll say is when we get into that fearful and anxious state,
yes,
we literally lose access to our higher mind. It puts us in the lower part of our brain, in our cerebellum, in our lizard brain, as they call it. And we literally lose access to the prefrontal cortex, which is where higher thinking, critical thinking, and creativity occur. So being able to approach something like debt or a challenge like paying a lot of debt off, it's crucial to be able to approach that from a calm state so that we can really incite as much of our higher mind, as much of our creative faculties as possible. And so removing that charge by flipping the script or reframing your perception of it, I think is massive, where all of a sudden it's not this mountain you have to climb. And then there's two more things I'll say about that. One, there's probably some process, some pathway that if you just get on the process and the pathway, the debt will be paid off in some finite amount of time. Like, I don't know what amount of time that would be for any individual, right? But like, there's probably just some plan or some process of just some track to get on, to just get on and not get off until it's paid off, right? There is a simplicity to that. And so I would say find that and find support around that. And I really love, it's so funny because her name's been coming up a lot in different conversations lately, but I love how Amanda Francis talks about focusing on overflow and focusing on.
Because I was going to ask about that. I was going to say, sometimes when I've like looked at manifestation people, they're like, never focus on the debt, like focus on creating overflow. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Is that what you're going to talk about?
And I feel like if you have a lot of shame or negative stories or even trauma around debt, we can definitely have money trauma around debt.
Yes.
That if all of that's there and it's not acknowledged and you're just focusing on overflow, I feel like sometimes that can hold you up because it's kind of like something still sitting in your space about it. So if there is some healing that needs to occur, so reframing that needs to occur, I say start there. And then, what is actually going to solve paying off the debt is money and allowing more money in. And like, it seems so simple, but at the same time, that's what happens when we are focused on the debt payoff. Then we're not focused on the allowing, the receiving, the generating, the creating, and actually being in the state of having more money than you know what to do with, so that debt's just not an issue.
Yeah.
And even, in a lot of what you teach that helped me so much is the actual nitty gritty of the management of it, like becoming the person who can channel and allocate and flow funds in such a way so that that debt's not being created. When you are somebody who has had debt for a really long time, you literally have to become a new person and have a new relationship with money to be able to receive, generate, channel, and allocate. It really, that's something like how I see it, right? Because a lot of what you taught me, right? In allocating funds in the appropriate way that's in alignment with your goals. So that's what I would say to the debt payoff journey.
Oh, that's so nice. What a nice way to put it. That's such a wonderful way to put it. I wonder like how, so like here I was trying to manifest paying off my debt, right? Like what would it look like for you if, if so like maybe I wasn't doing something right in the manifestation. Maybe there was something else on my journey I need to figure out. But like if someone else is listening now and they're like, I've been writing pay off my debt for a while. What could I do, Nicole, to like actually get in the manifestation part of paying off my debt? So what would that look like? What would that look like if you coach someone how to manifest paying off their debt to you?
Yeah. I think the first thing I would do is I would ask them if they feel like there's any self-forgiveness that needs to happen, right?
Yes,
Really
100%. Yeah.
create this cleared
Yeah.
slate, right? Because if we're self-punishing and if we're feeling like we're being punished by society because we have debt,
Yes.
getting high vibe is not going to be like the easy thing to do, right? So
it's so weird in our society that there's like this shame around debt, but also get into debt. Like there's this like go to college, obviously, get into debt, obviously. And then it's like, why are you in debt? Like, like there's kids in their 20s that are like, oh my God, I have student loans. I'm like 26. I'm like, you just like came out of college. Like, what do you mean? And then they're like all worried about having debt and it's okay. And then we're like, buy a car, just take out a loan, buy a house, take out a mortgage. Like, it's okay. And then it's like, oh, you have debt? How dare you?
So
contradicting views in society.
This is exactly why, like, really getting clear on where external narratives, societal narratives, cultural narratives are influencing what you believe about yourself or what you believe about you is so key. Yeah, because when you break free from that, and maybe, I know for me, like I definitely had a lot of moments where I would beat myself up over having that debt. And it wasn't until I had like the draw a line in the sand moment, look at myself in the eye in the mirror of like, oh, I'm letting this go. You know what?
Yeah.
This is what this really is. I'm not using this as a tool to beat myself up anymore.
Yeah.
It's who I'm choosing to be in the future. Like almost giving myself this opportunity to wipe the slate clean in my relationship with money and not use it as a tool to beat myself up anymore.
So if someone wanted to manifest paying off their debt, the first thing they would have to do is actually let go of any of those really strong charged emotions, whether it's shame, fear, regret, sad, like any of that stuff around.
Forgive.
Yeah. Okay.
Forgive. Yeah. I feel like forgiveness and debt are just such, so tied together. I think there's a book. Oh my gosh, what is her name? It's like the 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, Edwene Gaines. And she talks about spiritually like debt and forgiveness. So I would start with forgiveness. I would start with, what's there that you need to forgive yourself for. And, let's face it, like, especially in today's society, it's so easy to throw your credit card on Amazon. It's so easy to throw your credit card in these automated places where it gets charged. So maybe there is, an honest inventory of our behaviors, just an honest look of like, okay, where's this actually going? This is where a lot of your work with YNAB is really helpful. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, what is actually happening in reality? And now that I've forgiven myself, I can actually look, and I can look with an open heart, and I can look with a peaceful mind and just really just be honest about it. Right.
Yeah.
And, I'll add to that, like having faith and truly believing that you can, truly believing in abundance, starting to really work the muscle of, believing that it is actually possible, believing that it is possible for you. You're not destined being this broke person. You're not destined to be that person in debt. Like it is available. I think sometimes we can get so discouraged that we just don't even really feel into that possibility and see that possibility of that reality of like, oh no, this actually can be. So working like all those positivity things that we know, the gratitude practice, some type of spiritual practice, whether that just be, returning our mindset to faith, or if there's, I don't know, all kinds of ways we can pull.
Do you have a spiritual practice that you do?
I definitely meditate. Sometimes I'll work with oracle cards. Yeah. Sometimes it's just really simple. I'll just write a letter to God.
Yeah.
Just in my journal, just like I really do believe that connecting with a higher power is really powerful. And,
Mm.
having that, and really like, infinite intelligence, right? Being able to surrender to the all that is, so that we don't feel like we're having to do it all ourselves,
Mhm.
knowing that there is this force that is supporting us in this process and that actually does want what we want, that wants us to have the experience of that debt payoff, that wants us to have, and actually, for those of you that are interested in this, the book, The Science of Getting Rich, he talks about the spirituality and money
Mm.
like so beautifully and intricately of like, I mean, I never even thought to relate to my higher power the way that he describes. I mean, he literally, and Wallace Wattles is, and it's like an old book, but it's a
Yeah.
really short read.
Yeah.
Revisit it often, just because the way that, just talking about faith and talking about being in the certainty of
Yes.
this future that you want.
Yes.
To me, like as I think about that, right, just like, and I'm like an avid reader, I'm always reading money books because I just love, that's what I like to fill my mind with.
Yeah.
Um, Connects me to that, like that spot, right? That space of feeling supported, of yeah, just being held on this journey.
So you've been able to do a really cool thing. Like when you first came to me, I was like, I usually don't get manifestation coaches. Like I usually do not get them. And I think at least this is one I like couple things I've heard is that a lot of manifestation coaches find my work like a little bit, I don't know, not interesting because they find that it would be hard to hold the idea that there's always more, we can create more, there's an abundance, right? And also looking at our money daily. And I found like I find this with this pops up a lot. So this is like a really great thing for you to talk about because what I find happens a lot is people will have to look at their money daily, which is what I have a lot of my clients do in YNAB or weekly. And they'll be faced with the realization of money's going out, money's going out, money's going out, right? And then they'll be trying at the same time to hold this belief that money is always available, money is abundant, there's always more. Like, so Nicole has been like this perfect like client of mine who has both, who can hold both, who can hold this. I look at my money, I manage my money, but I always know that there is more and that, you have your spiritual practice of money. How do you feel like it's been possible to hold both? Or like, what has that looked like for you being able to hold both? Has it been hard to hold both of them too?
I love this question. So, okay, number one, like as much as I am like as spiritual and woo-woo as they come, like I'm also very grounded in the fact that we're all human and we live on planet Earth and money is a thing here. Like, having a bank account is a thing and managing credit cards, like this is the reality of human life, right? To
Yeah.
deny that, I think is a real disservice, right? There's a reason we are here in this way. And even if I don't have all the answers to that, I do know that the truth is I am here in this physical plane and there are things called dollars that I interact with,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to me to not be in denial about that, right? And to find the balance between just being in the reality of that and then also honoring that spiritual side of who I am, honoring my higher power, how that fits for me, and certainly spreading the word for, those that are interested to create that for themselves, right? um hold both. So that
Yeah.
first piece is just really honoring the human that I am. And I really honestly, it's going to sound like so simple that it's going to sound like complex, but I just really instilled a couple of just really, really powerful beliefs, that I worked consistently from 2013 ish to now.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't even know how to say the words. It was just like believing that I was worthy of wealth,
Mm-hmm.
believing that it was possible for me. I'll actually share this story because when I was really starting to play with this whole like let me manifest massive amounts of money,
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to manifest $100,000. That I was
Yeah.
gonna manifest $100,000. And what I was going to do was I was going to do what all of the, you know, long time manifest, Wallace Waddles and all the people, right? What they say is like to believe in the certainty of it, right? Like
Okay.
fully believe and like not give up on that belief. And that was
Yes.
what I was going to do for 6 months, is just hold that belief. Now, I thought that money was going to come through my business because I had started my coaching business. And like I was working a part-time job at the time. And literally, as I would drive to work every day, I would like consciously be like, that money's coming. I actually had it in my phone. It came up in my calendar every single day. You are about to receive more money than you've ever received before. And I just
Mm.
focused on that. I just focused on that.
Let's all do that. Let's all put
Yeah.
that one in there.
You are
Mhm.
about to receive more. Right. And so then it had me play in the availability, like being available for that money, trusting myself that I could receive and manage that money. And on and on and on it went, right? Like I literally, and then I would have the days where I would feel doubtful and I would be like, and then I would just, that was my one promise to myself, is that I would just stay true to that belief. And that,
Oh,
that,
I
that
love
was it.
that.
That was the simplicity of it. Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, I swear, almost 6 months to the day that it just so happened that my husband and I decided it was time to buy our first home. And it was in the middle of COVID. And it was a very sort of divine, like we'd gone to this park and I saw this housing complex. And there was just, it was like, we need to start looking at houses. Like it was like that. And I wasn't connecting my money manifestation journey with this. It was like they were totally disconnected. We had
Yeah.
been on a debt payoff journey, on a money management journey. I had moved from California to Louisville. So we're on this, okay, we're going to start looking, and we've done the things, the credit was in place and the 2-year job, all the things that you need for a mortgage. And we start down that path, and that kind of has its own story. But then we were sharing with his family that we're doing this, by no means were we weren't expecting any kind of help, but they were obviously expressing that there was some intention to like help us with the down payment. We're like, great, we're thinking it's going to be this 5-figure amount, and it was exactly the $100,000. And I think it ended up being a little bit more than that.
Oh my God. First of all, what a family. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. And I mean, truthfully, like I didn't know that was even, I mean, like you gotta, like, it's not like we were pining on this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it really, it's kind of a whole long story there of even how that came to be. But um, it was just such a profound moment of how this money came in. I thought it was going to come in a certain way. And what it taught me was how important it was to be available to receive that. And then since then, as I've moved on in my journey, which I eventually hired you for, because
Yes.
after that happened, more money started to come in. My husband started his business started taking off. There were other ways that our income was increasing, our assets were increasing. And I started to get to this like ceiling where managing it, like it wasn't, had a management system in place that was for, 2 incomes in our apartment dwelling. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it was like, we're talking about retirement and managing a household and all of these other things. And I was like at my limit with how to do it. And my paper system that I created for myself was certainly
The
um,
binder. I remember the binder, right? The
yes,
binder.
yes. I still have to reference it from time to
You
time. It's
still
my
have
little
your
like
binder.
grounding point, but I know it creates extra work for me, but
Yeah.
it gets me into YNAB too. So, yeah. But yeah. So, I mean, I really, and I feel like this, segues really well into your work, because what I've learned as I have had more money in my experience is kind of a little bit of a stark truth, because we think for so long that money's going to solve our problems.
Yes. A
And I just
hundred
thought
percent.
for so long, well, once I have money, I'll just,
Well, once I have money,
once
just
I
make
have
more
money,
money.
it'll be okay. But
Yeah.
actually, with money, it's like you hear it said, oh, comes great with responsibility. There's a lot of truth to that. When you own a
Yes.
home, there's an asset to manage. When you have an excess amount of money, there's taxes,
Yes.
there's ways to manage it.
Yeah.
It is a whole entire skill set that, I mean, honestly, I'm so grateful that I hired you to help me with, because um you gave me this, like, you had my back as I journeyed through this new, even accelerated relationship with money. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing. And I'm going to let you talk here in a second, because I want you to share like your take on all of this too. But like, I also think the other misnomer is that once we get to that point where money's coming in, like, we'll be done. Like, we'll
Yes.
just,
That's
it'll
it.
be done. Like, and it is so not that. You are always, it does not end. The growth, the mindset, the discomfort, the learning new things, like, the growth is constant and it's exponential, and that piece doesn't end. And honestly, I want to turn it over to you, because that is what I hired you for. That is what
Right.
you have helped me with, and actually helped me have some grace in the process of expanding, really
Yes.
continuing to.
Yes. Yes. I think it's like once we get, because we keep thinking, right? I'll make more money. I'll make more money. I mean, for like a lot of my clients, it's like I'll get to six figures, right? And I think that's what happened with, I mean, you guys have really grown massively. You and your husband, and your life and your wealth has grown so massively. And it was just like, oh, I'll just get to that spot. And we never think beyond that number. Like, we think hit that number, money will be taken care of. But what happens is, like, you get to that number and things kind of do. I don't want to scare anybody off from like hitting six figures or having a lot of money or building their assets and building their wealth. But once you do start to build your wealth, financial things start to become a little bit more complicated. There's like different tax brackets, there's different things. There's like, now all of a sudden money is coming in and going out, and lots is coming in and lots is going out. And it starts to just bring up all this stuff of like, the way I used to manage money, if you used to have a way to manage money, which is like, a lot of my people will come to me and they'll be using something, they're more along the lines of expense tracking, which is like what you were doing a little bit, right? When you came
Yes,
to me
for
with your
sure.
binder, it was like,
100%.
yeah, I know my expenses. I know I know what we need to pay. And that's what a lot of people are doing when they're making just enough. It's like, I know how to hit my expenses and that's it. But when you enter and manifest massively, and you enter into overflow state, then all of a sudden it's like, things can then all of a sudden expenses can start to creep up, everything. And it's like, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Now everything's happening rapidly. And it's like, but this old way of doing money, which is expense tracking, doesn't work anymore. And all of a sudden, it's like, I need to get on top of my money. And a lot of what I teach and what YNAB teaches you is zero sum budgeting, which is where now you start to give every dollar a job. Like, every dollar has to have a job, because there's so much coming in, there's so much going out, there's so many new things to then save for, pay for, right? When our wealth grows, what that usually means is like our expenses are growing. There's houses to manage, there's properties to manage, there is it could be a new business, there's new expenses in the business, everything is starting to like massively grow. And you no longer can just use expense tracking. It's like, now I really need to make sure every dollar is going to where I want it to go. And that's what like zero sum budgeting is. It's a completely different philosophy, it's a completely different way to look at money. And it's so funny that we all just think like, let me just get to making a lot of money and then I'll figure it all out. And it's like, no, there's this new layer, and like, it's all a part of just being on the journey of now someone who is a six-figure earner or a seven-figure earner. It's like, all right, well, now that you've made it here, guess what your next thing is to learn how to manage the money. Like, that's what you got to do. You work so hard to get there. Now let's like actually figure out how to manage your money so you get to keep it, or you get to pay off debt, or you get to retire early, or you get to buy another property, right? Things like that. And it's funny that like we all just think, just get there and I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But yeah.
So really quick, because I'm going to put this on my podcast too for my listeners. Can you give like the 3-minute version of your story? Because I love
Oh,
your story so
oh, my
much.
story.
It's
Well,
such a
which one is it? Is it the
well,
one?
I mean, what really brought you to like, oh shit, like I need to learn how to manage my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
like,
okay. My oh shit story was that I had a 6-figure year, my first 6-figure year in my business. And then I ended it with $25,000 in debt, no savings, nothing to show for it, no assets.
just
And
got chilled.
then, yeah. And then I started the next year pregnant with my head in a toilet. And my solution to all my money problems, just make more money, was like, not a solution, not possible anymore. And that was like my oh shit story. And then by the time my daughter was 16 months old, I ended up paying off $25,000, all that credit card debt. I am now
Wow.
officially 2 years credit card debt free, which is hard for a lot of people. Like, because a lot of people will get out of debt and then get back into it.
Yes.
So I've been 2 years debt free. So I paid off all of my credit card debt. I saved 6 months of personal expenses, 6 months of business expenses, all
Oh
within
my
that 16
gosh.
months. And that, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I carried credit card debt for like 17 years. And all
Yeah.
I needed was 16 months, just 16 months of my life to pay off. But it was because I didn't know how to manage my money. I was expense tracking for the longest time. And then once I came into a good amount of money, I was just using expense tracking. I had, like I still had a lot of wealth mindset issues going on. I kept thinking I needed to, instead of like get myself to a financially stable place. I know in that 6-figure year, I put a lot of money out because I was so worried that it wouldn't continue happening. So like I can look back at that year and be like, I put all this money out because I was so worried about me not being able to keep it and maintain it, instead of just being like, all right, cool, I figured out a way to get my business to 6 figures. Let me like stabilize my finances. Let me pay off a little bit more debt. Let me like get to like a good place. Let me build up some savings, right? I was just like, oh, no, I just need to keep the money, just keep the money coming in.
Yeah.
That's
Which is like a
my
fast
story in
track
a
to
nutshell
burnout,
for
right?
Nicole's listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now I'm at this
So
place now where I get to teach other people about, you need a budget. Well, that's what I teach a lot of my clients about, is you need a budget, which is what I call zero sum budgeting, which is life
yes.
changing. Yeah.
Which, yes, and I actually will put in my intro, but is a book and a piece of software, and so helpful to have you, elbow to elbow, getting all of that set up. So
Yes. Yeah.
helpful.
Cause it's a lot of people use, like, even on my journey, even when I was at 6 figures, I was using You Need a Budget. I was just using it as an expense tracker. I wasn't actually using it to do what it's meant to do, which is what we worked together and did. So a
Yeah.
lot of people will sign up for You Need a Budget and then be like, I don't understand. Like Shannon said, the software is supposed to be so great, but like, I'm not paying off debt. I'm not saving money. I'm not doing all these like fancy things with my money that I want to do. And it's like, oh, because you're just using it like Nicole's paper binder of expenses. You got to use it in the way it's meant to be used. And that's why I became a YNAB coach, because it's an entirely different philosophy. It's an entirely different way to manage your money. Yeah. It's what I call, it's a part of my lazy girl money method, which is my new method for teaching people how to use YNAB. So
I love that. The lazy girl
lazy girl
method.
money method. Yeah.
I will add that there's something to be said for when we become good stewards of money, that we are demonstrating something to ourselves subconsciously. We're also demonstrating something to the universe, right? I feel like just the act of buckling down, deciding to learn what you needed to learn, build the skills you needed to build, right? Like, opens you up to new channels of abundance, new channels of money that wouldn't be there because that trust is now instilled in a new way.
Yes.
So I feel like the
Mhm.
management of it is as important as the manifestation. It's like they really do go
Like together.
hand.
So
Yeah,
beautiful,
totally.
aren't they? Yes. It's like, oh, like, and that's what I thought was so cool about you, is I was like, Nicole can hold both, which a lot of people, like, I know a lot of people that are just like, no, like, I even know some manifestation coach one time that said something like, I'm not going to create a savings account because I don't want to attract in a like like an emergency or something that I need to. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, you can use them both like beautifully together to like
Something else. Just don't call it emergency fund. Call it something else. It's okay to have money.
Yeah, like
waiting there for you.
Call it my overflow money. Call it like,
yes,
my Italy vacation money. Like, call
for
it
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Good old fashioned rainy day fun. It's just a rainy day. That's all.
So you've done such a beautiful job at like being able to show people what it's like to be someone who believes in manifestation, works manifestation, uses manifestation, and then to also be someone who manages money at the same time too. Like,
thank you so much. I so appreciate that acknowledgement. It's like a rare acknowledgement to be seen in that way.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm really just grateful to highlight that, because I really just feel like, we I don't want to say we should, I don't like that word, but like being both, right? Like being powerful in both areas is possible. It's not rocket science. It is available, it is attainable. And it feels really good, right?
Yes.
To just have power in those areas. Not perfection by any means. I'm not perfect. But I do, honor both pieces of it.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on mine, and I'm on yours, and we're swapping both.
I love it. Always fabulous conversation.
We did it. We did 2 podcast episodes in one, everybody. So
I love it. I love it. Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on, Nicole. Where can people find you online? Where can my people find you?
Yeah. NicoleReneeRay.com, at Nicole Renee Ray on Instagram, and Renee's with 2 E's. So Nicole is, Nicole Renee Ray with 2 E's, but I'll give you the link. Yeah. Easy enough.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on.
Thank you.